Hi, welcome to Knowledge November. One of the things that managers sometimes ask me about is in relation to the ability for them to check people out on the internet before they recruit them. And I can understand the temptation for perhaps wanting to do so. According to the CIPD, 1 in 5 employers here does make checks of that nature, and 50% of employers will admit to having rejected somebody because of something that they've seen when they have done a bit of a trawl. In America, a survey studied the sorts of things people were finding and what that contributed to the decision-making process. And they found that employers were finding a mixture of inappropriate comments, evidence of illegal drug use, the expression of disparaging comments against ex-employers, people had previously worked for, that they had revealed perhaps something that showed they'd lied on their application form or CV, but also things like rejecting candidates for evidence of them having poor communication skills in terms of what they'd been posting, for example. So generally, our guidance would have to be that we wouldn't make checks. We spend an awful lot of time, don't we, holding out our equalities and diversity policies, saying, we're not going to discriminate against you on the grounds of sex, age, race, disability, religion and belief, sexual orientation, etc., etc. If we then start looking at things like Facebook, within the first 6 lines on Facebook, I'm probably going to find out somebody's sexual orientation and their religion or belief. The Information Commissioner would say that if we are going to use some form of vetting, like checking somebody's internet history and usage out, then we need to be making people aware of that. Giving them the opportunity to comment then on things before perhaps a decision is made, and also perhaps restricting who we do that for. So you wouldn't do it for example, people come to an interview. You might only do it at a later stage where you were thinking of actually recruiting somebody, like we might subject them to other forms of vetting, like obtaining references. Interestingly enough, there is a case in America at the moment where somebody is suing LinkedIn in respect of the ability on the website to recommend people, and where somebody's been recruited as a result of, not being recruited as a result of some of the things that were said about them. They're obviously trying to take legal action in respect of that. If you restrict who within your organisation is allowed to give official references from the company, then that will help with avoiding that sort of action in the future. But as we'll see later on, you've got to be careful in this area. There's the human rights and wider freedom of expression and rights not to suffer adverse consequences for having expressed your opinions in public that we need to think about. You'll also see later on that if you post things to the internet, there might be some difficulty in you arguing that you're entitled to any kind of privacy in relation to do that, with it obviously being such a open forum. But that will depend on the settings that somebody has set for their privacy. On a case-by-case basis, it's not as clear-cut as being able to say if you put something on a site, then you've got no expectation of privacy at all, and it's open season for your employer. Practical reality is, if a manager is going to make some checks, how does the person who's been subject to that checking ever establish or prove that happened, other than perhaps cross-examining that person in an employment tribunal? I've got to admit, if I was going to recruit somebody, I probably would check them out on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, and just see what kind of professional or otherwise demeanour they had. All things to think about and to at least discuss with managers when you're doing recruitment related training. If you've got any questions, please do email me, adenton@refreshinglawlimited.co.uk.